They told me I was dying. My wife stood by the hospital bed, tears in her eyes, but not for me. Her hand kept brushing the folder with my life insurance papers. That's when I knew. She wasn't waiting for me to recover. She was waiting for me to die. But what she didn't know was that I was already one step ahead. Before we continue, please subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. I heard the steady beep of the heart monitor, a sound that could drive a man crazy after hours of listening to it. Nurses came and went, their shoes squeaking softly against the polished hospital floor, but my eyes weren't on them. They were on her. Clara, my wife, 22 years of marriage, 2 decades of shared meals, vacations, anniversaries. I thought I knew every shade of her smile, every crease in her brow. But the woman sitting by my hospital bed that night wasn't the woman I had married. She was a stranger who looked at me the way a banker looks at a closing account, detached, waiting for the paperwork to clear. She squeezed my hand lightly. "Don't worry, darling. Everything will be okay," she whispered, but the tremor in her voice didn't sound like fear. It sounded like anticipation. I had been sick before, colds, fevers, even a surgery years ago. Clara had always fussed over me, bringing soup, extra blankets, nagging me about resting. But this time was different. She didn't bring food. She didn't adjust my pillow. She sat with her phone face down on her lap, eyes darting toward it every few seconds, as if she was waiting for a message. I closed my eyes halfway, pretending to drift off. That's when she leaned back, sighing as though I couldn't hear her. I caught the faintest whisper, "Not long now." My chest tightened, not from illness, but from rage. You'd think a man in my condition would break down at that moment, cry, beg, despair. But instead, something inside me hardened. If Clara thought I was just going to fade away and leave her with everything I had built, she was dead wrong. I met Clara when I was 27, a construction foreman with callous hands and a head full of dreams. She worked at the local diner, laughing with customers, her ponytail swinging as she carried trays. I thought she was the sweetest girl I'd ever seen. I gave her everything, dinners out when I could barely afford them, jewelry on holidays, a house I built with my own hands. She said she loved me. Maybe she even did, once. But love can rot when watered with greed. Over the years, I noticed the little changes. The way she started comparing us to her friends with wealthier husbands. The way she frowned at my work boots by the door. The way vacations went from modest beach trips to, "Why don't we ever fly to Europe like them?" I shrugged it off. I told myself I was just sensitive, that providing stability was enough. But sitting in that hospital bed, I realized she hadn't loved me for years. What she loved was the security, the money, the house. And now she was circling like a vulture, waiting for the last breath. The next night confirmed it. I had just fallen asleep when I heard the faint buzz of her phone. She slipped out into the hallway, her heels clicking softly. My room door was cracked open just enough. I strained to listen. Her voice was low, urgent. "Yes, he's weaker every day. The doctors say it won't be long." A pause, then a laugh, quick and sharp. "Of course. Once he's gone, everything will be ours. We won't have to worry anymore." My stomach turned. She wasn't just waiting for my death. She was planning her future with someone else. I clenched the blanket in my fists, forcing myself not to move, not to give away that I heard every word. My heart pounded so hard I thought the monitor would betray me. But she came back in a few minutes, phone tucked away, face composed, as if she had just gone to the restroom. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked sweetly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I opened my eyes slowly, forcing a weak smile. "Better now," I whispered. Inside, though, a different man was awake. A man who would not let this betrayal go unanswered. I spent the following days studying her like an opponent across a chessboard. Every sigh, every glance at her phone, every moment of fake concern. She thought she was winning, but she had no idea that her sick husband was quietly planning his move. One evening, when Clara had gone home to rest, I asked the nurse for my phone. With trembling fingers, I called a number I hadn't dialed in years. Mr. Lawson, my lawyer. Are you sure you want to make changes to your will and your condition? He asked, his voice cautious. Yes, I rasped, more sure than I've ever been. He visited me 2 days later, paperwork hidden in a plain folder. Together, we rewrote everything. On the surface, it looked like Clara would inherit it all, the house, the savings, even the life insurance. But the true documents, sealed and notarized, told a different story. Every cent would go to my daughter, the only person who had never betrayed me. I signed my name, steady as a rock. Mr. Lawson looked at me, eyebrows raised. And your wife? She won't suspect. She'll think she won, I said with a grim smile. Until the moment she realizes she lost everything. From that point on, I became an actor. Every cough, every stumble, every pain groan rehearsed. Every weak smile, every "I love you" whispered through cracked lips, staged. Clara lapped it up, certain that the end was near. At night, I lay awake, listening as she slipped away to make more phone calls. I memorized every word. Soon, darling. Just a little longer. You can't hold on much more. Each whisper was fuel. Each lie sharpened my resolve. She thought she was clever, but I was already 3 steps ahead. And then came the night when I decided it was time to begin the real game. The next morning, Clara came in carrying a bouquet of flowers. Bright, cheerful, colorful, the kind of flowers you bring to celebrate, not to comfort. She set them down with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. They're beautiful, I whispered, forcing a cough. They are, she agreed, settling into the chair beside me. Just like the life we'll have once you're better. She said it with such conviction. Anyone else might have believed her, but I knew what hid behind those painted words. I saw the quick glance at her phone, the way she fiddled with her ring finger, twisting the gold band as though it were just another piece of jewelry to be replaced. I played along. Yes, once I'm better. Inside, I wanted to laugh. Better? She had already buried me in her mind. She was already rehearsing her freedom, picturing herself with him, the man on the other end of those phone calls. That night, after she left, I asked a nurse for a favor. I told her I want to keep a journal, something to leave behind in case I didn't make it. She agreed, bringing me a plain notebook and a pen. But the journal wasn't for memories. It was for evidence. Each entry, I wrote down her words. Every sentence she whispered when she thought I was asleep. Every detail of her secret phone calls. The names, the promises, the laughter. I recorded it all in neat, deliberate handwriting. If anyone doubted me later, they would see her betrayal with their own eyes. A week passed. My condition appeared to worsen. I ate less, moved slower, winced at every breath. Nurses shook their heads sympathetically, but my mind was sharper than ever. Clara grew bolder. One evening, I caught her on the phone inside the hospital cafeteria. I was supposed to be too weak to leave my bed, but I had convinced a nurse to wheel me out for fresh air. I parked just around the corner, hidden by a column, and listened. Don't worry, she said softly into the phone. He barely eats. He's skin and bones. A few more days, maybe a week at most. Then it'll all be settled. Yes, the house too. Everything. I promise. Her laughter echoed through the cafeteria. A sound I once loved. A sound that now felt like knives against my skin. I tightened my grip on the wheelchair armrest. Every word fueled the fire burning inside me. She thought she was planning her new life. But in reality, she was digging her own grave. I decided it was time to test her. That night, I whispered to her as she sat by my bedside, Clara, I want to go over my will again, just to make sure you'll be taken care of. Her eyes lit up just for a fraction of a second before she smoothed her expression. Oh, darling, you don't need to worry about that. Just focus on getting better. I shook my head weakly. No, I insist. Tomorrow, call Lawson. I want him here. She hesitated, then nodded quickly. Of course, I'll call him. I smiled faintly and closed my eyes. But inside, I was already 3 steps ahead. I had no intention of letting her control that meeting. Lawson wasn't on the plan. She would think she had won. only to find the ground crumbling beneath her feet. The following day, Lawson arrived. Clara sat upright, hands folded in her lap, trying to look like the grieving but devoted wife. "Mr. Lawson," I croaked, "make sure everything goes to Clara. The house, the accounts. She deserves it." Her face softened, but not with love, with greed. Her eyes glistened as though I had just handed her the keys to a kingdom. Lawson played his part perfectly. "Very well. I'll make the necessary adjustments." She kissed my forehead gently after he left. "You don't know how much this means to me," she whispered. I forced a weak smile. "Anything for you." But the truth was, the documents Lawson carried weren't her victory. They were her undoing. Over the next week, my plan sharpened. I asked to be discharged early, telling the doctors I wanted to spend whatever time I had left at home. They were reluctant, but Clara pushed for it. She wanted me in that house, where she could watch me fade away and count the days until the funeral. When we arrived home, she fluffed the pillows on the couch, made me tea, fussed with the curtains. She acted like the perfect caretaker. But every time her phone buzzed, she turned her back to me, whispering into it with urgency. I pretended not to notice. Instead, I began preparing the house itself. My daughter would inherit it, not her. But Clara didn't know that. She thought she was walking through her future kingdom. I made small notes to myself: basement safe, garage documents, bank accounts. I double-checked everything with Lawson, making sure the paperwork was airtight. Clara believed she was standing on solid ground, but it was quicksand. The cracks in her mask began to show. One night, she came into the living room, tears in her eyes. "Darling, if you really love me, why not transfer the accounts now? Just in case something happens at the bank. It would make things easier." I coughed, clutching my chest, playing the part of a weak old man. "Clara, I trust you. Tomorrow we'll call the bank." Her face brightened instantly. But what she didn't know was that Lawson had already prepared a different set of accounts, one she would never access. The next morning, when we called the bank together, everything appeared to go smoothly. She even signed some documents. She believed she now had full control. But the truth? She had signed acknowledgments that would later prove she knew nothing about the real accounts. Another piece of the trap was set. Her greed made her sloppy. She started leaving the house at odd hours, dressed too nicely for errands. She came back smelling of cologne that wasn't mine. Once, she even forgot to lock her phone before setting it down on the table. A message lit up the screen: "Soon, my love, will be free." I clenched my jaw, rage boiling under my calm exterior. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Timing was everything. Instead, I acted weaker, sicker. I let my hands tremble more, let my coughs echo through the night. I made her believe I was circling the drain, ready to be flushed away. And she bought it. She bought every second of it. One evening, as I lay sleeping on the couch, I overheard her in the kitchen. She thought I couldn't hear her hushed voice. "Yes, yes, tomorrow. He looks worse every day. The bank accounts are ready. Once he's gone, we'll finally have everything." Her voice dropped lower, but I caught the last word. Together. I closed my eyes tighter, forcing steady breaths. My heart pounded against my ribs, not from sickness, but from fury. Tomorrow. She was planning something for tomorrow. That's when I knew it was time. Time to flip the board. Time to begin her downfall. The morning came heavy with silence. Clara busied herself in the kitchen, humming softly, too sweetly. It wasn't the tune of a worried wife. It was the tune of a woman preparing for freedom. She brought me breakfast in bed. Eggs, toast, juice. She had never cooked for me this carefully in months. I stared at the tray, my stomach tightening. I had read enough novels, seen enough crime stories, to recognize when a meal might be laced with more than kindness. "Eat, darling," she urged, smiling brightly. "You need your strength." I lifted the fork with trembling fingers, letting the eggs hover near my mouth. But before I could take a bite, I dropped the fork, coughing violently. Clara rushed forward, patting my back, but her eyes flicked to the plate, then to the clock on the wall. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about timing. I leaned back, gasping, and pushed the tray away. Not hungry. Her smile faltered just for a second. Then it returned, thinner, tighter. That's all right. Maybe later. But I saw it, the flash of irritation, the disappointment. She had been counting on me eating. That evening, Lawson visited again, carrying another set of papers. He was part of the performance now, playing his role perfectly. "Mr. Harris," he said solemnly, "these are the final arrangements. Once signed, everything will be settled for your wife's security." Clara leaned forward, eyes gleaming like a child on Christmas morning. I pretended to struggle with the pen, my hand shaking. Clara eagerly guided my hand, pressing the paper closer. "Just a few signatures. Darling, then you can rest." I scrawled my name slowly, deliberately. Clara didn't notice Lawson's small nod to me, the quiet signal that the trap was locked. She believed the papers sealed her fortune. In reality, they sealed her ruin. That night, Clara slipped out again. I waited until the door clicked shut before reaching for my phone. "Lawson," I whispered, my voice stronger than it had been in days. "It's time." He knew what I meant. The documents were already filed, the accounts transferred, the house secured under my daughter's name. All that remained was the reveal. And oh, how I longed for that reveal. The next morning, Clara was radiant. She wore her best dress, makeup flawless, as though she were preparing for a celebration. "How are you feeling today?" she asked lightly. I coughed weakly. "Worse," I whispered. She didn't even flinch. In fact, I thought I caught the ghost of a smile. By afternoon, she grew restless, pacing the living room, checking her phone every few minutes. I let my head loll to the side, pretending to drift. That's when she made her move. She stood over me, her shadow falling across my face. "It won't be long now," she murmured. Not long at all. I cracked my eyes open just a sliver, enough to see the cold determination in hers. And that was the moment I decided it was time to end the charade. "Clara," I whispered hoarsely, "come closer." She leaned down, her hand brushing my cheek. "Yes, darling." I forced a shaky breath. I just want to say, I know." Her brow furrowed. "No? Know what?" I opened my eyes fully, letting the weakness drain away from my voice. "I know about him. I know about the phone calls. I know you've been waiting for me to die." Her face went pale, lips parting in shock. For a moment, she was speechless. Then she forced a laugh, brittle and sharp. "Darling, you must be confused. The medicine." "Don't lie." I cut in, my voice steady, strong. Stronger than she'd heard in weeks. I heard every word. I wrote them down. Every single one. "Would you like to read it? My journal is full of your betrayal." Her eyes darted toward the nightstand, where the leather-bound book lay. She hadn't noticed it before. Now it glared at her like a spotlight. You don't understand," she stammered. "I was just talking to a friend." "A friend you called darling?" "A friend you promised everything to once I was gone." I sat up slowly, deliberately, no trace of weakness in my posture now. "No, Clara, I understand perfectly." Her mask cracked, anger flashing across her face. "Fine," she spat. "So what if I did? Do you think I was going to waste the rest of my life chained to a dying man? You were holding me back. I deserve better." Her voice echoed through the room, shrill and venomous. I let her rant, every word sealing her own fate. Then I smiled coldly. "You're right. You do deserve better. That's why you're getting nothing." Her eyes widened. "What?" I reached under the bed and pulled out the folder Lawson had left for me. I tossed it onto the table. "Here's the truth. The house, the accounts, the insurance, all of it is in my daughter's name now. Every penny. You don't get a dime." She lunged for the papers, flipping through them with trembling hands. With each page, her face grew paler. No, this isn't possible," she whispered. "It's not only possible," I said calmly. "It's done. Legal. Irrevocable. You plotted, you waited, you betrayed, and for what? Nothing." Her fury exploded. She slammed the papers down, her face twisted in rage. "You'll regret this," she screamed. I stood, stronger than ever, my voice like steel. "No, Clara, you'll regret this. You wasted years of your life plotting against a man who gave you everything. And now, you'll leave with nothing but your shame." Tears filled her eyes, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of defeat. I pointed to the door. "Get out. Now." She hesitated, trembling, then stormed toward the door, slamming it behind her so hard the windows rattled. For the first time in weeks, the house was quiet, peaceful. I sank back into the chair, a weight lifting from my chest. I wasn't sick anymore. I wasn't dying. I was free. A few days later, I sat on the porch with my daughter, the sun warming my face. She flipped through the papers, shaking her head in disbelief. "You really did all this, Dad?" she asked softly. I nodded. I had to. She thought she could take everything. But I made sure justice was served. She squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with pride. "I'm glad you're still here. And I'm glad she's gone." I smiled, watching the horizon. Sometimes, betrayal feels like the end. But if you're patient, if you're smart, it can be the beginning of freedom. And to anyone listening now, remember this. When greed poisons love, betrayal is inevitable. But revenge? Revenge is a dish best served not with anger, but with patience. And that was the fate of a greedy wife who betrayed the man who gave her everything. Justice was served. If you don't want to miss more true stories of betrayal, revenge, and justice, make sure to subscribe to True Revenge for daily stories. Your support helps us bring you even more tales where betrayal never goes unpunished.